Have you ever felt different, like you weren't meant to walk the same path as everyone else? Maybe your life has been filled with trials, with moments that nearly broke you, and yet here you are, still standing. In this video, we'll uncover 7 powerful signs that you are chosen by God, not randomly, but with deep purpose. From unexplainable burdens to divine provision, and the battles you've survived, every part of your journey may have been leading here. If you've ever wondered why your soul longs for more, this is the message your heart has been waiting for. You know, I've spent a lifetime trying to explain a feeling I never had the words for. It started when I was young, maybe 10, maybe 12. I remember walking home from school, watching other kids laugh and play like the world made sense to them. And all I could think was, is this it? I didn't feel sad, just out of place. Like I was living in a world that I was somehow a guest in, not quite planted, not quite at home. And over the years, that feeling never really left me. Even when I had the job, the house, the family, the so-called American dream, there was a quiet ache in my spirit. A soft kind of homesickness for something I couldn't name. I tried to push it down. I really did. I filled my days with busyness, chores, routines, Sunday dinners, scrolling through the news like the answers might be there. But late at night, when everything was quiet, it would return. This unshakable sense that my life was meant for more. Not more money, not more stuff, but more meaning. Have you ever felt that? Like the world kept trying to hand you a script, but deep down you knew you weren't meant to follow it? Maybe people said you were too sensitive. Maybe you were the one who noticed things others ignored. Maybe like me, you felt like a puzzle piece that didn't quite fit even in your own story. And here's the wild part. For most of my life, I thought something was wrong with me because of that feeling. But now I see it for what it really was. A sign, a whisper, a holy echo from the one who made me. See, the Bible says something that used to sound poetic until it started to feel personal. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. Jeremiah 1:5. Set apart. That's the word that cracked something open in me. What if the reason I never fit in is because I wasn't supposed to? What if that restlessness wasn't failure, but calling? Because when God chooses someone, when He places His hand on a life, that life will never look like everyone else's. The path gets lonelier, the questions get deeper, the stakes feel higher. But the truth, it means you're being led, not lost. And that's what I want to share with you, not just today, but over the next few parts of this journey. Because if you've ever felt like you were born different, if you've walked through things that almost broke you, yet something inside held on, if you've always sensed that your soul was hungry for more, then you may be walking a path that was never meant to be ordinary. You may be among the chosen. And no, that doesn't mean perfect. It means set apart for something eternal. In the next part, I'll tell you how life's hardest moments, the betrayals, the breakdowns, the silent tears, might actually be the very proof that you've been called. But for now, I want you to do something simple. Take a deep breath, place your hand over your heart, and whisper this out loud. Even if you're not sure you believe it yet, I was never forgotten. I was always chosen, because that's where the journey begins. There are chapters of my life I don't like to revisit, not because I'm ashamed, but because they were so heavy. You know the kind of days I'm talking about. The ones where it felt like life had flipped upside down overnight, where everything you'd built, your plans, your peace, your sense of control just crumbled. Maybe for you, it was the diagnosis, or the day they left, or when the phone rang and everything after that moment became a blur. For me, it was a slow unraveling. Loss after loss. Closed doors, silent prayers, and the haunting question that echoed through all of it, God, why? I remember sitting in my car one night, in the dark, gripping the steering wheel like it was the only thing keeping me from falling apart. I didn't even have the words to pray. All I could say was, I don't understand. I just don't understand. Maybe you've been there too. And if you have, I want to share something that changed the way I see everything. It's from the story of Joseph, not the coat of many colors part, but what came after. After the dreams, after the favor, after the promise. Joseph was betrayed by his own brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused, thrown into prison, forgotten by the very people he helped. From the outside, it looked like failure stacked on failure, like every dream he ever had was a cruel joke. But God wasn't absent. He was positioning Joseph, not punishing him. What looked like rejection was actually redirection. What felt like the end was just the beginning of something far greater. Because when the time was right, Joseph didn't just survive, he was elevated. From prisoner to ruler, from forgotten to favored. And that story, his story, helped me see my own trials through a new lens. What if the pain we go through isn't evidence that God has turned away, but proof that he's getting us ready for something we couldn't carry yet? You see, fire doesn't just burn, it refines. Scripture says, I have refined you, though not as silver. I have tested you in the furnace of affliction. Isaiah 48:10. That word furnace is not gentle. It's hot, uncomfortable, unrelenting, but it's also where impurities rise, where strength is forged, where identity is revealed. And maybe that's what your storm has been. Not a punishment, but a process, a divine furnace, shaping you into someone who's not just aware of their calling, but ready for it. When you're chosen by God, you don't get to skip the fire. Even Jesus, our Savior, was led into the wilderness before he began his ministry. 40 days of hunger, testing, solitude. So if you've been in a season where nothing makes sense, if you've walked through loss, grief, rejection, or silence, maybe it's because you're being trusted with something bigger, something sacred, something eternal. And yes, it hurts. There are nights that feel endless, tears that fall without explanation, people who walk away, doors that slam shut in your face. But you are not being destroyed. You are being refined. The fire that was meant to consume you is actually purifying you so that you can rise without the things that once held you back. So here's what I want you to hold on to today. The pain didn't mean you were forgotten. It meant you were being formed. And if you're still in that furnace, still in the fire, I want you to know you're not alone. God is not standing outside the flames, watching from a distance. He's in it with you. Just like he was with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Just like he was with Job. Just like he was with Joseph in the prison cell. He is with you. You will come out of this not bitter, not broken, but better. So before we move into the next part of this journey, I want to say this. If your life has felt like it's been in pieces, maybe God isn't breaking you. Maybe he's building you. And when he's finished, you won't even recognize the strength he's carved into your soul. Stay with me, because in part 3, we'll talk about the quiet pull you've always felt even when you walked away. The whisper that wouldn't let go. There was a time in my life when I stopped praying, not because I didn't believe in God, but because I wasn't sure he still believed in me. I didn't make some big declaration, I'm done. It wasn't dramatic. It was quieter than that. Like the slow fading of a sunset, it just grew darker. One skipped prayer became a few. One missed Sunday turned into months. And before I knew it, I was walking through life on my own, smiling, showing up, paying bills, but spiritually, I was numb. Can you relate to that? It wasn't that I turned to something terrible. I just drifted, caught in the current of busy days, small distractions, and silent disappointments. And yet this is the part that still breaks me when I think about it. God never let me go. Even in that season, I'd feel it. A whisper, a pull, soft but steady, like a gentle hand brushing my heart. It would come when I passed by a church late at night, lights still on, or when I'd hear an old worship song while flipping through the radio. Sometimes it was just a verse that popped into my head at the most random moment, a verse I hadn't thought about in years. My sheep hear my voice and I know them and they follow me. John 10:27. I wasn't looking for him, but he was always looking for me. That's the difference between religion and being chosen. Religion says, come back when you're clean. But being chosen means God comes to find you in the dirt. Do you know what I've learned? The reason you can't fully enjoy the things that others seem to indulge in so easily, the reason you still feel convicted when you fall short, is because God's Spirit is alive in you. Even when you don't feel worthy, even when you've messed up, even when shame whispers, it's too late. That whisper inside of you is stronger. It's not shame, it's not guilt, it's grace. Like a loving father who never stops calling your name, even when you're far from home. Remember Peter, the disciple who walked on water, the one who said he'd never deny Jesus. And then he did not once, but 3 times. But what did Jesus do? He didn't shame him. He didn't replace him. He restored him. Because failure doesn't disqualify the chosen. It simply proves we can't do this without grace. And David, the man after God's own heart, he sinned in ways that should have ruined him. But the difference was his heart couldn't bear to stay away. When you're chosen, even your rebellion has a rope attached. You may wander far, but you'll always feel the tug home. Friend, I don't know what you've walked away from. I don't know how long it's been, but I do know this. If you're still feeling that whisper, if something inside of you still longs for more, God hasn't moved on from you. That whisper isn't your imagination. It's an invitation. And the beauty of grace is that you don't have to clean yourself up before you return. You just have to turn. Just turn. That's all it takes to hear his voice again. And I promise you, he's not angry. He's not keeping score. He's been waiting with open arms. So if you've been carrying the weight of regret, if you felt too far gone to be called, if you've wondered whether you can ever come back, this is your sign. The whisper never left, because neither did he. In the next part of this journey, we'll talk about something you've probably experienced, those impossible moments where it looked like everything should have fallen apart, but somehow God made a way. Supernatural provision, when it wasn't luck, when it wasn't logic, when it was him. Stay with me. The story's just beginning. Have you ever looked back on a season of your life and realized you shouldn't have made it through? I mean that sincerely. Maybe the numbers didn't add up. Maybe you didn't know how rent would be paid. Maybe the grief felt too deep, the loneliness too sharp, the road ahead completely blocked, and still somehow you got through. You didn't know how at the time, but now, looking back, you do. It was God, and it wasn't luck. It wasn't coincidence. It wasn't a stroke of random fortune. It was provision divine, timely, precise, just like he always does. I remember a particular season of my life, bills stacked, car failing, everything around me falling apart faster than I could hold it together. I was tired, not just physically, spiritually, like I was holding up the roof with shaking hands. And then came this moment. I was down to my last few dollars. I hadn't told anyone. Didn't want to burden people. I figured I'd just push through. Then one day, I opened my mailbox and there it was. A handwritten note, no return address. Inside, enough money to cover what I needed that week. To this day, I don't know who sent it, but I know who sent them. That moment rewired something in me. because it reminded me of one of the most unusual stories in scripture. Then the word of the Lord came to Elijah. I have directed the ravens to supply you with food. 1 Kings 17 to 2:6. Ravens of all creatures. Not doves, not angels, ravens. Dirty, common, ordinary scavengers. But they obeyed. They fed a prophet during a famine, bread and meat, morning and evening, because God had commanded it. It wasn't flashy, it wasn't fancy, but it was enough. Friend, maybe you're not in famine, but you're in a place where what you have isn't matching what you need. And maybe you've started wondering if God still provides. Let me tell you something. I've learned sometimes the provision comes in ways that don't look holy. A refund check, an old friend who just happened to call, an opportunity that arrives the moment you were about to give up. God is still in the business of sending ravens. But here's what we often miss. God's provision isn't always about money. Sometimes it's peace when you should be falling apart. Sometimes it's direction when every path looks unclear. Sometimes it's strength when you're too weary to keep going. Provision is God's way of saying, I see you, I haven't forgotten, I will give you what you need. Not always what we want, not always in the way we expect it, but always on time. Just like the widow in 1 Kings 17. She had only a handful of flour and a little oil, enough for one final meal for her and her son. But when she obeyed and gave to the prophet, her jar never ran out. Day after day, she had just enough. And I think that's something our generation understands, this sacred rhythm of just enough, not excess, not prosperity gospel, but the quiet faithfulness of a God who sustains day by day, moment by moment. You might not always see it in the moment, but if you stop and reflect, if you really think about the times you should have fallen, you'll begin to see the fingerprints of God. He was always there, feeding you, carrying you, sustaining you, maybe not with silver and gold, but with peace in the storm, with light in the valley, with bread from ravens. In the next part of our journey, we'll explore something sacred, something weighty, the burden you carry for others. That heavy heart you have for people in pain is not a weakness. It's one of the clearest signs you are trusted by God. Join me in part 5, the burden that won't let you rest. But for now, pause and ask yourself, when I had nothing left, how did I make it through? You'll find that the answer is always Him. There's something I want to ask you. Have you ever felt the weight of the world, and it wasn't even your world? You see someone hurting and somehow their pain becomes your pain. You hear about someone's loss and you carry it like it happened to your own family. You sit alone and suddenly your chest feels heavy, like you're grieving things that aren't even yours. It's hard to explain to people, isn't it? They tell you to stop overthinking, to shake it off, to not let it get to you. But deep down, this isn't about sensitivity. It's something deeper. It's not anxiety. It's not weakness. It's a burden, a spiritual one. You feel what others ignore. You see what others overlook. You can't walk past pain without feeling it. And maybe you've wondered why. Maybe you've asked God, why did you make me like this? Why can't I just live carefree? Why can't I numb it all like other people do? Why can't I just turn off my heart? But what if I told you that burden is one of the clearest signs that you are chosen? Look at Nehemiah. He was living in comfort, serving in the palace of the king. He had access to wealth, protection, privilege. But the moment he heard that the walls of Jerusalem were broken down, when I heard these things, I sat down and wept. For days I mourned and fasted and prayed. Nehemiah 1-4. That's the power of a divine burden. He could have ignored it. He could have said, it's not my problem. But his spirit wouldn't let him rest. And maybe that's been you. You lie awake at night thinking of people you've never met, You cry in worship for reasons you can't explain. You give even when it stretches you because something inside you says, they need this more. That's not random. That's not emotionalism. That is God's heart beating inside of yours. You've been trusted with empathy, with intercession, with compassion that costs you something, and yes, it gets heavy. There are days when it feels like too much, when you want to shut it all off, when you wonder, does anyone care like I do? But can I encourage you with this? The burden is not there to break you. It's there to awaken you. It's not about fixing everything. It's about caring enough to step in when others step away. You might be the one who prays for others in silence, the one who sees behind the smiles, the one who gives hugs that heal more than medicine ever could. That's ministry, even if no one sees it, even if no one thanks you. God sees, and He trusted you with that kind of heart, just like He did with Moses. Remember him? He grew up in Pharaoh's palace. He had everything, but he couldn't stay comfortable while his people suffered. That burden burned in him so much so that he left everything behind to step into his calling. And you, if you've been asking, why do I feel this so deeply? Maybe it's because your heart was wired for mission, not just survival. There's a sacred line that separates those who watch and those who weep. And the ones who weep, they're often the ones God uses most. So no, you're not too sensitive. You're not too emotional. You're not weak. You are carrying God's compassion. And that's not a flaw, it's a fire. It's what makes you pray when no one else will. It's what makes you give when you have little to spare. It's what makes you stop, see, love, and act. So let the burden soften you, but don't let it crush you. Let it fuel your faith, not your fear. And when it gets too heavy, give it back to the one who gave it to you. He's still carrying the world. You don't have to. In part 6 of this journey, we're going to talk about something tender and maybe even painful when God starts removing people from your life. Not as punishment, but as preparation. Sometimes separation is the very thing that makes room for destiny. But for now, if your heart has carried more than it should, if you've wept in secret and wondered if it mattered, just remember this. The burden you carry is proof that God has trusted you with His heart, and He's not finished with you yet. Let me ask you something a little personal. Have you ever lost someone you thought would be there forever? Not just through death, but through distance, disconnection, a slow, quiet, fading, like a photograph left in the sun. Maybe it was a lifelong friend. Maybe someone in your church circle, maybe family, the kind you never imagined doing life without. At first, it feels like rejection, like abandonment, like some cosmic mistake. You wonder what went wrong. You replay conversations, ask yourself if you could have fixed it, if you should have held on tighter. But here's what I've learned. Sometimes the people we lose were never meant to go where God is taking us. Let me say that again. Separation is not always rejection. Sometimes it's protection. It hurts, I know. But the more I walk with God, the more I've come to see that growth often comes with goodbyes. Let's look at Moses. He grew up in Pharaoh's palace. He had status, privilege, power. But before he could step into his calling, before he could lead millions to freedom, God led him out of that place. He had to leave Egypt, leave comfort, leave connections. Why? Because where God was taking him, Pharaoh couldn't go. And maybe that's true for you too. That friend who stopped calling, that relationship that quietly unraveled, that group you used to fit into, but now feels like a foreign country. It's not because you're unlovable. It's not because you failed. It's because God is shifting the soil under your feet. You've outgrown the container, and the people who once felt like home may no longer be aligned with your next assignment. That doesn't make them bad. It just means their chapter in your story has ended. Think about Joseph. His brothers, his own flesh and blood, betrayed him, sold him, lied about him, abandoned him. But what did God do? He used that betrayal to position Joseph in Egypt, not just for Joseph's blessing, but for the saving of an entire nation. What they meant for evil, God turned into purpose. And here's the truth, most people don't say out loud, some people can't handle your calling. Some people will keep you small because it's safer for them. Some people would water down your faith because it reminds them of what they're avoiding. And some people were only meant to be with you for a season, not a lifetime. So if you've walked through seasons of loneliness, if you've stared at an empty chair that used to be filled, if you've wondered why God allows people to leave, here's what I need you to hear. Every exit is an entrance to something sacred. Yes, grieve. Yes, remember the love, the laughter, the closeness. But don't stay stuck at the door that closed. Because God never removes without a reason, and He never prunes without a purpose. Maybe He's making space for someone new. Maybe He's freeing your spirit to fly. Maybe, just maybe, the loneliness is preparing you for intimacy with Him. You're not being punished. You're being positioned. And on the other side of the silence is something holy. In the final part of this journey, we're going to talk about the greatest sign of all, not that you've had a perfect life, but that you've survived everything that was meant to destroy you, attacked but never defeated. Because chosen people don't live easy lives, but they do live victorious ones. I want to take a moment right now to look directly into your heart. Yes, you, the one on the other side of this screen, the one who's been quietly watching, nodding, maybe even wiping away a few tears. The one who's felt seen, maybe for the first time in a long time. Let me tell you something simple and sacred. You are still here. After everything life threw at you, after the betrayals, after the sickness, after the silence, after the losses no one else saw, you are still here. And that alone, that beautiful, breath-stealing truth, is the final and most powerful sign that you are chosen. Because the enemy didn't hold back, did he? He attacked your family. He attacked your mind. He whispered lies in the dark and tried to convince you it was over. He used people, circumstances, even your own self-doubt. But you're here. Bruised? Maybe. Tired? Absolutely. But broken? Never. Because the hand of God was always over your life, even when you couldn't feel it. Paul said it like this: we are hard-pressed on every side, but not crushed, perplexed, but not in despair, persecuted, but not abandoned, struck down, but not destroyed. 2 Corinthians 4-8-9. That's the anthem of the chosen. Not perfect, not without scars, but undefeated. And maybe you've been waiting for some grand moment, a sign, a lightning bolt, a prophetic word to confirm what your spirit already knows. But sometimes the sign is quieter than that. Sometimes the sign is that you're still standing, that your faith, even if it's small, hasn't died, that your hope, even if it flickers, hasn't gone out, that you've been through hell and somehow your heart is still open to heaven. You are chosen, set apart, called for something greater than comfort or ease. You were not born to simply exist, to retire quietly, to fade into the background. You are here because God still has something for you to do, to pray, to speak, to give, to carry, to leave behind for those who will come after you. So I want to ask you gently, boldly, what will you do now that you know? What will you do with the truth that God has whispered over your life since the day you took your first breath? You can't ignore it anymore. You weren't meant to live an ordinary life. You weren't meant to spend the rest of your years just remembering who you were. There is more, right here, right now. And if you still have breath in your lungs, that means God still has plans for you, not just in eternity, but today. So rise, chosen one. Stand a little taller, pray a little deeper, speak a little louder, love a little braver, because the battle did not end you. It revealed you. You are still standing. You are still chosen. And the world still needs the light that only you can shine. Before you go, if this message spoke to your soul, if something inside you stirred, remembered, or healed, I want you to do two things. Comment below. Write this in the comments. I'm still standing. I'm still choosing. Let it be your declaration. Let it be your reminder. Share this video with someone who needs it. Someone right now is questioning their worth, their purpose, their future. Let your obedience be the spark that revives their faith. And if you haven't already, subscribe to this channel. Not because I need the numbers, but because you need to be reminded regularly that God is still speaking, and you are still part of His story. Thank you for walking through this journey with me. You've given me your time, your heart, and your trust. And I want you to know I don't take that lightly. From one soul to another, you are seen, you are loved, you are chosen, and your best days, yes, even now, are still ahead. See you soon, my friend.